So this is the front of the little desk that I want to do the raised effects on. And I still wasn't sure about the coloring. So this is faded burlap DIY paint that I mixed with the embossing gel. So I'm going to give that a try. And we are using our Vintage Corners stencil. And I'm going to only use this part here. So I'm using painter's tape to tape this down. And you could use the stencil adhesive on this. I'm not going to today. And I already pre-mixed up the embossing gel. And I'm just gonna put it right on here. So I'm just dragging this across. And you can see it's not taking very much. I mean, there's quite a bit left on my scraper here. I'm going to take some of it off. I'm just going to use my popsicle stick here. I'm just going to scrape some of that off so that I can come back in here and clean it up a little bit. And sometimes it's better to use the bigger one of these. They come in 2 sizes, and I should have probably grabbed the larger one, but we will make do with this. So that's one side. We're going to go ahead and take the stencil off. And you always want to raise straight up or lift it straight up. And there we go. So here we go with the magic. I don't know if you can see this, but this was my mistake. I used the heat gun on high heat, and I made the paint kind of bubble up here. And so I'll have to figure out how I'm going to deal with that. But the stencil itself looks really, really nice. Okay, now I've moved to the other side, and we're going to just do the same thing that we did with the other side, hopefully not raising the paint because we have the heat gun too high. If you have a lower temperature heat gun, like a crafting heat gun, it probably doesn't get as hot as the heat gun I'm using. I'm using one that we use for when we remodel houses, which is pretty high heat. I don't know, I think I'm not sure what it is actually, but I'm pretty sure that the crafting heat guns are lower heat. So that looks pretty good. All right, so I did do the same thing here. And I think one of the reasons why this is a paint that has a top coat. Now, if I were to use the regular DIY paint and do this, I don't think it's going to bubble up at all. But because this has a top coat, I think that's why that's happening. I just went ahead and pushed this down. I will double check it. I may need to just sand it a little bit and just do a little touch-up paint, but the rest of it turned out pretty nicely. So before you do any next steps, wait for this to cool because it will be still a little soft. I think I am going to go ahead and put a little bit of the faded burlap into that little crease there. So I'm just going to take a small brush and I'm going to attempt to do this without being right next to it. And I'm doing a crappy job because my hands are shaky. But you can always go through. I usually keep baby wipes so that I can just go along that edge and clean it up. I don't think this is the right brush. I think I need a different brush because this isn't getting in there quite the way I want it to. If you have shaky hands like I do, give yourself some grace and know that baby wipes are your best friend in this case. And you're just going to go along on the flat and wipe it down. And the paint will go back to its original color. You can tell it's a little bit. So I'm going to slide you over. And I used my fingernail just to kind of scrape that off. I will probably up here use a little bit of sandpaper just to clean it up a little bit. But to get in there, I'm just going to go back to this brush and just get a little bit of paint on that. And if you're sloppy and you get it on your raised part, just clean it off. Let that dry, come back, do a second coat. I'm just going to touch up here a little bit more. I had already repainted that part that bubbled. Like I said, I just kind of took my fingernail. It would probably be better to do it with sandpaper. You're going to get a smoother finish with the sandpaper. So because I used the mineral paint on this that doesn't have the built-in top coat, I am going to go ahead and wax this, but I don't want to wax the whole thing. So I put the stencil back over the top, and you could do this also if you wanted to add a second color over the top of this and wipe back some of it, or just paint it again or whatever. You can do this method, but I'm just going to take my finger, I'm just going to go in there because I don't want the wax on the blue. Now, if I want to, I can also then, once I do this, add a dark wax, but I'm not sure I'm going to since I have the same color in here. I think I will just leave it the way it is instead of adding the dark wax, but this is a good way to add the dark wax also, so you only have it where the raised stencil is. And if it's too much, remember you can wipe it back. Now after you're done with this, because you've got wax on the stencil itself, you don't want the wax on the stencil, you don't want to leave it on there. So use a little Dawn dishwashing soap to clean the stencil and you're good to go for the next use. Also added, it's really bad lighting there, I also added just a stripe of the paint on the detail there, just so it kind of ties it all together.